everybody. Thank you again for joining Little Monkey today in our Parenting Talk series. Hi, Arcadia. So
Hi.
today we're doing this interview in a Typhoon A. Fun. So as you know, our Parenting Talk series, Little Monkey, we try to give parents all the information out there, whether it's the newest technology or the newest studies, so the parents can make the right decision for their family. Our topic today is a very hot one, screen time. Since with the pandemic and everything, COVID, screen time has been a big, major pain and also a relief for the parents to sometimes be able to give the kids some screen and to get a little peace and quiet for us to work, especially since a lot of us is working from home. However, it is also one of the topics that we've been warned about and we've been told about to avoid. So today we have Arcadia with me, and the topic is building a good relationship with your child or your children. And Arcadia is actually promoting screen time, but not in the way that you think. So today we're going to have her come on and give us a little bit of the background on her company, Infinite Screen Time, that she founded. And let's hear about what her thoughts are on screen time and how we can better build that relationship for our children. Hi, Arcadia.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. And, even in this T8, it's what screen time is it's enabling us to be able to have this connection and actually have this conversation. So in so many ways, that sort of just kicks off our conversation about repositioning technology in our families so that we can set up our kids for success in the future. And I'm so happy to be having this conversation, particularly with the Little Monkey community, because I know that it's the under 7 sets, right? Yes. And a lot of these really important habits around how to use technology and utilize it to be a tool starts from a very, very early age, even from babyhood all the way up. And so there's so many things that we can do in order to model positive screen smart behavior that I think a lot of your community will appreciate, largely because I think that we all know that this technology is here to stay. Yeah. And it's something that we really need to figure out how to do well for our families and on behalf of the future for our kids. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Well, we're excited to go into the topic and to tell our Little Monkey community about that as well. So before we begin, though, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself a little.
Sure. So I like to introduce myself first as a mom of 3 screen time loving kids. They are older now. They're age 15, 12, and 9. But I have really gone through this gamut of where technology plays, not only in my own life, but in my family's life. And it rooted from the fact that I actually, before I became a stay-at-home mom, I actually worked in the video game industry for about a decade and a half. And my last post there was as the chief operating officer for a company called Electronic Arts, which if any gamers out there will definitely know, it's EA. It's one of the biggest video game companies in the US. And I actually worked on some of the video game greats, like The Sims, Lord of the Rings, Medal of Honor, Command and Conquer. And I grew up as a gamer, for somebody who worked in the gaming industry for that long and that deeply. I grew up playing video games. But I have to say, when I think back to the games that I used to play when I was younger, it's a completely different technology. Not only is it a completely different technology, it's a different mode of gameplay. In fact, when I was working on video games, the iPhone wasn't even created yet. And now we've got games that are just sort of following us wherever we go. Now, I'll go into a little bit later, but I had a real aha moment when it came to my relationship with technology with my kids that really brought me to this idea around infinite screen time. Fundamentally, I think that our society's ideas about screen time has so many negative connotations because of the fact that we didn't grow up with the same type of technology that we did. And the goal of infinite screen time is to recast that connotation into something that can be positive, connective, and something that could have infinite possibilities for our kids because we're building healthy screen time habits from a very young age.
Yeah, because especially it's this fear that we have, and this fear has been put into us by all these experts around us by saying, all these news reports by saying things like, oh, this is what technology does to a child's brain. This is what radiation does from the phone. How many, because kids nowadays are wearing glasses earlier because they're watching the screen a lot more earlier. So all these fears are being put into us. And usually when we're confronted with fear, it is to avoid it, right?
Right.
To avoid it, to say, okay, well, if that's the case, it's bad, then let's just avoid it fully. Let's just try to cut out technology. We're a no screen household, or that, there's a lot of different ways that parents are trying to avoid this problem. And this problem is something that is not going to go away, as you mentioned, because with technology, it's just going to strengthen, and because we do need it, and this is a way of surviving. So unless tomorrow some apocalyptic thing happen and all technology is gone somehow, we're going to still use it for a while. So it is, you're right, it's something that we need to address, and it's better to have a good relationship, a healthy relationship with technology, than to have a fearful one. And I agree with you on that. So with that said, tell me a little bit about Infinite Screen Time. That's your company. You mentioned how you started it a little bit, but what is it exactly? Are you promoting literally the name of your company, Infinite Screen Time, or are you promoting something else?
Well, I like to think of infinite screen time as a movement, right? As a movement that is really trying to dispel the negative connotations of screen time and trying to recast it into good. I feel like part of what I love doing, particularly in talking with families and really going out and doing the outreach, is hearing the stories, right? Hearing the struggles, and then helping families to recast that struggle into something positive. And so, for instance, hygiene or good nutrition, right? That's something that we have been, as especially when we have young children, right? We've really had ingrained and understood about having a well-balanced meal, for instance, right? And how that's really important. And we know that there's foods out there that are good for you, and there's foods out there that might not be so good for you. There are certain foods that you have to introduce at a certain age, and there are certain foods that you should not be introducing before a certain age, right? And we've got sort of a societal understanding about this balance, right? And we know that there are going to be good days around food, and there's going to be bad days around food. I wish that we had that
guideline, right?
Yeah, we have to fun.
Exactly, like the MSC, when we go to the MSC for the checkup for the kids, they give you a guideline at 6 months, at 1 year old, this is what they're supposed to be eating. This is what you should introduce them at 3 meals a day and everything. But there is no, you're right, there is no really guideline on screen time.
Well, there is. It tends to be very oblique and very blunt. And what's actually the truth is that what drives our family screen time is not the number of minutes or the time of day. What actually drives our screen time, and I'm glad that you put my little cheat sheet, right, is the values, our family values. So I'm going to use this analogy again around nutrition. So I'm Korean, right? And so as a Korean family, there are different foods that I might be introducing to my kids that are going to be different than, let's say, middle of America family, right?
Yep.
And we might be using more spices, right? Or we might be using a little bit more vegetables in a different way, less sweets. And it's really based on my culture and my values, right? And that's the same when it comes to screen time, right? There might be some families or some children who I like to call dandelions, right? They're actually going to be able to see a really fast-paced cartoon and not have any issues about it, right? And then you have orchid children who might see a fast-paced, highly animated cartoon and they all of a sudden get really nervous, right? It puts them on edge. And by actually having this idea that actually no screen time before the age of 2, absolutely not, right? That's actually saying a one size fits all for every single family that's out there without giving into consideration the huge, vast diversity of screen time that's available, right? The state of each family. If you've got two working parents, I'm sorry, I don't know how you can survive without screen time in some way, shape, or form, right? And so there's a little bit of, there needs to be more sophistication around our conversations around screen time. And by bringing out this more sophistication, what I hope and why I see infinite screen time as a movement is that there's going to be less shame, strife, and worry about it. Because I see a generation of kids whose relationship with screen time is really hinging upon their parents' relationship with how they are consuming their screens, right? And so if we are looking at it as something evil and bad, almost like drugs or alcohol, right? Then they're going to actually have that same sort of relationship. In fact, what they might end up doing is start hiding away, right, with their screen, right? When they get to an age,
you don't approve, so they will do it in secret instead.
They'll do it in secret. And in fact, that could actually lead to much more dangerous scenarios, because that's where we'll see kids speaking online with people that they might not be, should be speaking with, right? We're seeing things and then being a little bit like shocked and then not running to their parents. By not having these early conversations with our kids about the diversity of screen time and the openness, having the open conversations about what's available on screen time, empowering kids to give them the agency to be able to say, this is what I like and this is what I don't like. By shutting out those conversations from an early age, they're only modeling what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
Then later on, if they do get into trouble, I think, you know, I work with families from early age all the way up. That's where you might see kind of that troublesome behavior building up.
Yeah.
And so, and your original question is, what does infinite screen time do? Well, one of the things that you see here is I have this course called Screen Time Serenity, and it's an online course, and I'll help families actually go through, this is a methodology that I've developed. And what we do is we do an analysis of your family's values. We do an analysis of your family's time and location, and we help you come up with a set of infinite screen time principles, right? Rules that work with your family's values and how your family interacts together. I don't know, like, Chin, about you, but when I was first starting off with my kids early on, and they were, you know, were just introduced with iPads, I would go online and I would try to find a screen time rules, right? Like, how do I manage this thing? And I would go online and I'd search that and I'd download somebody else's rules and I'd be like, oh, that looks good enough. And I'd try to implement it in my family. And fundamentally, it would work okay, maybe for a week, but the week after it would just start to fall apart, because I never described and understood the reason why those rules were important to us. I never gave my kids the opportunity to give their input on the rules, even at a young age, right? I never really thought about the stress points in their schedule, right? I never thought about what they needed, right, in order to sort of relax. Fundamentally, I never thought that screen time was any good, right? And that was my challenge. And so this result is coming out of a wealth of pain for myself, right? And also just talking to so many families about what their experiences are all the way up the chain.
So my understanding of this, when you first sent it to me, is that what's good about the methodology, the cheat sheet that you gave, is that the parents are the one not just understanding the underlying foundation of the three different where, what, when, and how.
Yes.
Well, what in this case, but they can change it. Because like you mentioned, when you download that rule for your family, it's someone else's rule. So it might not have taken into account what your family's social or daily lifestyle is. It's a little different, right? Everybody's a little different. That's why I love that when you came up with this cheat sheet and the other information that you sent over, everything is geared toward family making their own decision, customizing to their own lifestyle. And I think that's very key to make things work for themselves, because everybody's different and everybody's lifestyle is going to be different. So you're right, there is no one rule that fits at all. Now,
there isn't.
With that said, a lot of times I'm not able to really articulate to my daughter why we couldn't do something because she's too young. How do you explain to like a 2-3 year old that is outside and they see other kids with a computer or a phone or an iPad in their hand? How do you deal with young children that is Little Monkey's audience? And then also, what age do we start giving them, right? Because I know even when they're like 1 month old, I have the phone in their face because we're expats here, right? We have families abroad. And so a lot of times our families are talking to them via screen time on this. This is the only way the families can see, especially since last year to now. It's every other day or every 3 days, they're talking to their grandparents in the US. So then, you know, then that begs the question, is it too early? But then how can you not have that? Because the kids need to talk to their grandparents, especially in this necessity time.
Right. Yes. And so brilliant questions. So let's go through the cheat sheet, because I think the cheat sheet is there for a reason. And also for your listeners, the cheat sheet you can get for free on my website, which is at infinitescreentime.com.
And we'll share that too at the end of this interview as well.
So let's go through the cheat sheet and think about, you know, for your 22-month-old, right, how all of those pieces fit together. When you're thinking about the why, right, and connecting with grandparents and relatives and having them interact with them on the screen, there's no reason why you shouldn't do that, obviously, right? It's something that's really, really beneficial for them because it keeps them connected with them. And what I like to think about is, and I'm going to introduce another layered topic on top of this, which is something that I teach in my course, the 4 C's, right? So there's a 4 C's of different screen times, right? One of them, that one is doing connectivity. So you and I, what we're doing right now, we're connecting. It's a much different part of my brain, right? Because we're exchanging ideas, we're understanding each other. And when I say something, you're having a reaction. And that's the same thing that happens in FaceTime. In fact, the American Pediatric Association, and I did say that they were being very blunt before, and they're trying really hard to make it a little bit less blunt, but I think it's really hard just because of the diversity of things. And so that's why, as parents, we're really put to ourselves to make concerted strategic decisions that are based on our family. But they did say before the age of 2, screen time is okay if it's FaceTime.
Okay.
If it's FaceTime, okay? Screen time is okay if it's FaceTime. Because there is this interaction. Another category which I would think about is obviously, even at the age, you know, early reading is very important, or connecting through mediums and books, right? And so while paper book is wonderful, right? Sometimes you don't have access to that paper book. Think about your iPhone or your iPad like you would a picture book, right? If you are looking at something together, whether it be a YouTube channel or some game that they're working on, if you are connecting with your child in a triangular form, oh, do you see the dog here, right? Yes. Oh, do you see what that dog is doing? Oh, interesting. I see that boy is having a very good time opening that piece of a present that they got, right? I wonder why. By having these interactive kind of conversations, it's in like the same way of them observing the things that are outside in their life, but they have access to the infinite possibilities of what their device is offering them, right? It's really important is that you are parallel with them, sitting next to them, or they're sitting on your lap, right? And you're interacting with the technology with them. Because what they see also is that they're seeing that this is something that's really fun and interactive, and it's something that I do out in the open with my family. A lot of times we see families give the iPhone, right, or the iPad to the child, right, and then it's over, you know, like they're in their own world and there's very little interaction. And what we're doing is we're missing an opportunity here, right, to have a shared experience with your child using that technology. And as much as possible that we can do that, that satisfies the why for not only for their development, but also their connection with you, right?
Yeah.
And then if we think about the time, I remember during that time, the schedule becomes so important, right? To keep them on that very steady nap schedule, feeding schedule, right? It helps to regulate not only their mood, but also their development, right? Schedule in that screen time rather than have it be something that's kind of working with them on the go, right? Or something that they're like cry about and then you give it to them, right?
Yeah.
Schedule in that screen time so they have that expectation, right? It's like after I have a relaxing bath, I get to watch maybe 20 minutes of a cartoon, right? Or, you know, right before you know, dinner starts, right? It's a very typical scenario that we see. Rather than feeling the guilt and worry about it, give the screen time something, give the screen time to your child, something that's fortifying, nutritious, right? So that you have time to fix dinner and put everything out on the table. It'll give you a peace of mind, be able to work on everything and put it out there, right? And your child will then see that as a part of the routine in the day that then says, oh, now I know after this, I'm going to have my meal and then I'm going to go do my, so again, I think that this is a very important aspect that we can actually be scheduling in our screen time. So it's not something that the kid feels like if I cry enough, I'm going to be able to get it, right? Or if I cry enough, yes. Or if I see somebody else outside and I see that they're doing it, oh no, I know later on before dinner time, I'm going to get my 20 minutes. I'm going to be able to see that show that I really want to watch, right? Doesn't mean that they're not going to be curious about what the other child is watching for the same reason why if you go to the playground and somebody brings a toy, everybody's going to be very curious about what that toy is. It's a completely natural experience. And you can recognize that experience, not say, oh, no, you're not allowed to do that. You can say, oh, but remember, you know, before dinner time, we're going to get our time, right?
Yep.
Location is also a very important thing. Just like you said, we have the no screen zone at our dinner table. Think about places in your house that are screen full zones, areas in your house that are okay to have screens, because you want to build a very early habit where screen time is out in the open. Trust me, I have a teenager who's 15 years old, right? And they will come a time when they will go into their hole in their cave with the screen time, right? And you don't know exactly what they're going to be doing. And you want to make sure that you can be able to trust them where they go online and they're not hiding away from you. So in my house, and this is an example that I use in my house, doesn't mean that it might work in that will work in yours, but our couch is a screen full zone. That means when you're out there on that couch, you can whip out your iPad, do whatever you want. It's like you can kind of go wild with your screens because it's out in the open. And so same thing like that. If it's a screen, you know, if it's a screen right before dinner, right, let's have it be somewhere that's not in their bedroom, somewhere that's open so that you can actually be keeping an eye on them, but also feeling as though that they can actually see you and it's all positive. Scheduling the, you know, just as important as scheduling the screen time is just as important as not scheduling the non-screen time, the physical time, right? To be able to get out there. And I know that this is one of the mantras of Little Monkey, like creating these sort of experiences. And I think that that's so important, right? To be able to balance so much that has happened in the last 2 years because so much has been online and been mandated online. And so, and we're quite lucky here in Hong Kong to be able to have those opportunities.
Yeah, to go out and everything, right? Yeah, exactly. Like they have to have, no, play dates, playground time, or just going out with mom on errands. That's something I think a lot of parents feel like they have to always pack the kids' schedule with like classes, this and this and this. Not always. Sometimes I'm just like, you know what? She didn't go out yesterday because of typhoon. Today, I'm just going to make a run into the supermarket. She'll come with me. That's actually a really good learning experience to see. And she loves being mommy's little helper, pushing the cart. It gets frustrating because sometimes she wants to just run with it. And I'm like, no. And it really teaches them also proper societal behavior, like When you're around a bunch of people, we don't run. So what I'm hearing from you from infinite screen time is the first thing is foremost important, understanding your values in your family. And this is a conversation you can talk to with your spouse and whoever it is living in your household that's occupying it. What is the value, the when and the how and the where, those have to be all set. And I agree, just like having a child, what values are we bringing to the children? You know, what is our baseline or what we accept them to do, or what kind of behavior is acceptable, what's not behavior? These all have to be talked about. The second one is, you mentioned, I think, having a schedule of time, like the time basically, right? Having that schedule, having a routine with the child on when screen time. So they expect certain time that they do have screen time, but again, also having a balance of going out time as well, so that they know there is, not screen time is not everything. They get a little bit of the outdoor time too, as well as the time that is interacting with you. I also hear from you being there as parent, parallel. So when they are on their phone playing a game or whatever, just being there talking to them about it. I just wanted to take this time also to educate our audience a little bit on how do you work with parents, right? Because I know you sent me this, and I'm gonna also be able to send it to at the end of the interview.
Yes.
Parents can see as well. Arcadia has these worksheets that she does that she sent to us as free for our community to use. But can you explain a little bit, Arcadia, how does screen time work? How do you, now other than what we spoke about, the when, the why, the time, the location, what are the steps that you take? How long do you work with parents? Like, what is the program like?
So I have a course called Screen Time Serenity, which is all online, and it takes you through those 3 sort of bubbles. It is a 6-week course, right, where you do an analysis of your family values, you do an analysis of your family screen, your schedule and the locations, and you put together at the end of that screen time principles. I do also lots of, so that's something, and it comes with worksheets. You're able to work with a group. So I will open that class probably 2020. So I closed it in 2021. And so in 2022, I'll probably open it again. I do lots of speakerships. And so if you've got schools that want to have this conversation around screen time or do a mini workshop along those lines, then I'm available for that. I'll be doing the TEDx in December, which is super exciting. Other than that, there's I have an Instagram account, Facebook account, which I give lots of tips on a regular basis. Oh, I also have a private Facebook group, which I 3 times a week have different sort of tips on Tuesday. We also have a Q&A, and we also have Facebook Lives, where we're also talking about different topics around screen time.
You spoke about the workshop with the school. Are you working with the children or working with the parents of the children for this workshop at school?
I've actually done both. Worksheet is an example, right, of 1 month of different prompts, right, on how you can use technology to kind of create and reposition it into positive. So for instance, take a still life photos using the portrait function and start an online gallery, right? This is a very, there's these things that you can do, right? Create little activities that use the technology that develop the creative juices. And so, which brings me, I only talked about 1 C. The 4 C's are connectivity, there's creativity, right? There is collaboration, and then there's also consumption, right? So there's passive consumption and active consumption. And so these are all different types of ways that we use technology. So passive consumption is like watching a television show or watching a movie. Active consumption is like watching, playing a video game, where you're kind of you're consuming content, but you're interacting with it, right?
Yeah.
Connection and collaboration is what we're doing right now. And then there's creativity, like I'm making music, or I'm taking photos, I'm, I
love this.
Yeah, so there's all these different ways that we can use technology. It's not we all tend to throw the baby in the bathwater, right? Like, you know, that throw the baby out with the bathwater. We all say screen time, and it's this huge thing, right? Where there's
but everyone keep thinking screen time is the passive consumption, and that's something that we have to teach the children that, you know, technology is not only passive consumption, because when they see us, especially at that young of age, they think we're doing passive consumption as well, when we're doing a lot of these things, like doing digital photo slideshow of children or taking pictures and things like that. So do it with them, I think, kind of model how how we use it, not just, you know, mom and dad, not just sitting there watching Netflix all the time, you know, on our,
exactly. And 200%,
things like that.
Yeah, and 200%, all of our kids will have something to do with technology when they get older, right? It has changed so many
now in school.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think about this now. My son is 15, you know, like the way that he will start dating is totally different because of technology than when I started.
Think about that.
Right? And so his ability to know, how technology works, right, and how people portray themselves online is critical, right? And the earlier that he understands that, the better, right? And so it's really important that we're teaching these principles from a very young age, doing exactly, Chin, what you were talking about, modeling good behavior, showing them what you're doing with the technology, seeing the infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really important about screen time, right, is knowing that there is a time not only when you need to turn down to go to bed, but so do your electronics. And so you'll see here on the third line, time all electronics go to bed, right? And it's this idea, because we know there's a lot of scientific data and proof that the blue light from screens keep us up. And I think as adults, we know that. Like, there's been moments when I've woken up in the middle of the night, and the moment I look at the screen time, it's game over. I'm awake all night, right? And so it's important that our kids, there's a lot of young adults who use their screens as a crutch to go to bed, and it's a very unhealthy habit. And so from a very young age, I'm telling all of your community, trust me, let's teach how to put the electronics to bed as part of their routine, so that they know that these things are not to be turned on around the bed.
Thank you so much. Here is the full contact information, which again, you know, that's going to be up on our, whenever we have this interview, we're going to have the summary in the very bottom, and all the visual like these are going to be there for our audience to take a look at. Thank you so much for today. I think the information is very important. It's a really important topic for parents to understand, and not to have that fear rule their life. It's something that we do have to face sooner or later. So my advice, and I think your advice as well, is to face it sooner than later, to get it out of the way, to get your values and, you know, the ISM that we talk about, the infinite screen time method, to just have that set so that you know where we're going, and to have that chat with the kids sooner than later about this as well, once they start to understand things, like, you know, maybe 3 or 4 years old afterwards. But thank you so much for your time. Thank you. And as always, and as always, for our community, you know, this information, it might work for you, it might not work for you, because we understand different families have very different values as well, and different ways of life and lifestyle. So we just want to give you as much information as possible for you to make the right decision for your family. So I hope this has been helpful for you as well. So until next time, take a look at our blog, as Scarlett, our blogger, does share issues that she faced as a local mom here in Hong Kong. All her blog pieces are written in Chinese, and we translate English for expats community, or those who doesn't read Chinese like myself, to be able to understand and consume that information as well. So thank you, and until next time. Bye, Arcadia.
Thank you so much. Thank you.